Welcome to my views and news, another video for you. Firstly, I have a picture for you and a new story about a video. Tigray fighters and ENDF soldiers are meeting on the ground. Friendly meetings, very positive developments being seen in the battlefield. Secondly, Tefera Mamo, former chief of Amhara Special Force, very critical of Ethiopian federal government, Amhara regional government, staunch supporter of ethnic Amharas, was prevented from flying abroad. He was stopped in Addis Ababa. What happened there? And thirdly, Jawar Mohammed, Oromo, a politician, vice chairman of Oromo Federalist Congress, spoke today. He used very strong language about ongoing civil war. He said civil war ongoing in the Oromia region. He used the word rapid disintegration as well. What did he say? He's not in Ethiopia, by the way. He's outside Ethiopia these days. What did he say? He called for dialogue, but can there be dialogue to resolve conflict in Oromia? I have my analysis for you. Firstly, some pictures and videos are being shared showing Tigray fighters and Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers meeting up on the ground in the battlefield. Very encouraging, very positive, commendable developments being seen. You can see a picture on your screen. TDF fighter, ENDF soldiers were seen reportedly sharing food and cigarettes. Secondly, a video is being circulated in social media showing TDF fighter and ENDF soldiers. ENDF soldiers are digging up ground and they are burying dead bodies of Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers. Tigray fighters are standing there as well. This spirit of friendship, this spirit of reconciliation should continue. It should be backed. All are Ethiopians. Tigray fighters and Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers, all are Ethiopian. By the way, these soldiers fought and suffered a lot. We mostly talk about suffering of civilians in conflicts, that women are paying the price of the war, children, elderly, but these combatants, soldiers, we don't talk much about what they have gone through emotionally, psychologically, physically. Thousands have been paralyzed, wounded, injured, tens of thousands killed as well, and the traumas which they go through stay with them for years. That is why this spirit of healthy engagement between the two parties must be applauded and supported. The spirit should continue. It will resolve this conflict for good. Secondly, viewers, a former commander of Amhara Special Force was prevented from leaving Ethiopia on Wednesday. His name is Tefera Mamo. In the second round of Tigray conflict, when Tigray forces entered neighboring Amhara and Afar regions in July last year, Tefera Mamo was commanding Amhara Special Force. He was specially appointed to command Amhara Special Force after TDF entered Amhara and Afar regions. Later, he developed some disagreements with Amhara regional government and Ethiopian National Defense Force, especially after TDF retreated from Amhara and Afar regions in November last year. Even before November, when fighting was ongoing, TDF was in Amhara, Afar region. We kept on hearing about disagreements between Tefera Mamo and Amhara regional government officials and Ethiopian National Defense Force. After TDF retreated from the Amhara region of Ethiopia in November, December last year, Tefera Mamo was removed from his post as Amhara Special Force Chief. He was appointed as advisor to Amhara region's president, but he did not take charge as the advisor. He criticized Amhara politicians, Ethiopian federal government. They were working against ethnic Amhara interests, interests of ethnic Amhara. So he was put in prison. He was arrested and he remained in prison for some time. Later, he was released. He's very critical of Ethiopian government, Amhara regional government, and he's one of the 4 members of Amhara People's Negotiators Delegation, which was formed by some diaspora groups and some groups in the Amhara region to participate in talks in Pretoria, South Africa. But the delegation was not allowed to be part of talks in South Africa. You can say that he represents hardliner ethnic Amharas. And he was trying to flee Ethiopia, or you can say that he was trying to leave Ethiopia because it was through a legal channel. He was at Bole airport of Addis Ababa on Wednesday, but he was not allowed to board a flight. He kept on waiting for 2 hours and then he returned. So you can say that Tefera Mamo cannot leave Ethiopia because he is under restrictions. Restrictions have not been made public so far, but restrictions are there. It means that government, federal government, Amhara regional government's crackdown on hardliner Amharas is continuing. That is why thousands of journalists, activists, intellectuals, or fauna fighters are still in prison, arrested 3 to 4 months ago, but no one has been released. Majority not released so far. Tefera Mamo still in Ethiopia. Lastly, viewers, Jawar Mohammed, who is accused of being in secret alliance with PM Abiy a few hours ago, lashed out at government, regional government, federal government. What did he say? Sorry. Firstly, he said that people are happy that war in northern Ethiopia has come to an end through peace agreement. But civil war in Oromo has worsened. He used the word civil war. What is happening between Oromo Liberation Army and government forces, he called it civil war. Civil war in Oromo is intensifying. Drone strikes on civilians intensifying. He mentioned some places that in a few weeks, recent weeks, in Chobi, Mita Volkaiti, Nakamte, hundreds of civilians have been killed in drone strikes. Indiscriminate airstrikes are being conducted on Oromo. And millions have been displaced in this conflict. He says, like the conflict in the north, conflict in Oromo is also a political conflict. Ethiopian government cannot bomb its way out of the conflict. Government parties will have to sit at the table and talk. That is how this conflict can be resolved. Otherwise, things are moving towards rapid disintegration. Disintegration of the country or society, not clear. He used the word rapid disintegration. So he urged the parties should sit at the table and should move towards consensus to find a mutually acceptable solution. He said Ethiopia needs comprehensive peace, not just not peace in one part of Ethiopia, comprehensive peace. Now, Jawar is urging political solution to the conflict in Oromia. Can we say talks could be held, will be held, due to be held in Oromia? Tigray conflict definitely ended at the table, but before talks, things happened in the battlefield. TPLF came under immense pressure militarily. Ethiopian federal forces, regional forces, Eritrean military, they had momentum on their side, military momentum. They were gaining ground. They were taking control of territories. So TPLF thought that it was not in a position to continue armed resistance. Had it tried to continue armed resistance, it would have been in a difficult position. So it decided to agree to the demands of Ethiopian federal government. The agreement signed in Pretoria is basically agreement of capitulation. People say TPLF surrendered, which is true to some extent. But in Oromia, OLA is not in such a position. OLA is as strong as it was a few months or a few years ago. It's a guerrilla force. The way it was operating 2 years ago, it is operating now as well. Rather, it has become stronger. I don't think that you can strike agreement with OLA like you did with TPLF. And maybe that is why war will continue. I think Ethiopian federal government will try to weaken OLA before start of talks. And that is why 3 to 4 months ago, Ethiopian federal forces, Oromo special forces, they launched a major offensive against OLA. 4 command posts of Ethiopian National Defense Force were set up in Oromia. But even that offensive could not strike a decisive blow to Oromo Liberation Army. So maybe this war will continue for some time, I think, in Oromia. In Oromia, fighting, perhaps the right word, in Oromia, fighting will continue for some time. Federal government will try to weaken OLA, then there could be start of talks. Question is, can federal government weaken OLA like it weakened TPLF?